So, my wife and I just moved here a month ago. We're in Berkeley, so we're really happy to be here. Thanks so much. So what's strange to me is the decision to hate instead of love. Earlier this week, somebody had asked me to talk about this whole Bill Mahr thing, and quite honestly, I didn't know how to respond. It made me think about how I should respond. And what I'm saying today is what my response would be. He said, Islam is a cancer that needs to be cut out of America. That's what lawmaker John Bennett said in Oklahoma before he received a standing ovation. We all know what Bill Mahr had said earlier this week. And we know that right now in New York City there's an advertising campaign on buses that says, today's moderate is tomorrow's extremist, meaning that people should be wary about befriending people like me. I don't know any other country to call home but the United States of America, so how should I feel? How would you feel if somebody insulted your mother? I could say, fuck you. Because that's the American thing to do, right? When the English raised taxes on American tea, our founding fathers didn't roll over and say, thanks. But thankfully we have other American leaders like Dr. King, who said that the only power that is strong enough to drive out darkness is light. If we replace darkness with hate, then that means the only power that is strong enough to drive out hate is love. So Mr. Bennett, Mr. Mahr, perhaps I'm not as religious as Dr. King to love you, but I can try. I'd like to tell you three things. I'd like to tell you the number 37. I'd like to tell you Pol Pot, and I'd like to tell you Christopher Columbus. 37, why? Because since 9/11, there have been 190,000 acts of terrorism within the United States, according to the Triangle Center of Homeland Security and Terrorism at Duke University. 190,000 acts of terrorism on U.S. soil. 37 of them have been at the hands of Muslims. Let that sink in for a second. 37 out of 190,000. That means that it's not 1% of terrorism, it's not 0.1% of terrorism, it is 0.01% of terrorism in the United States that is at the hands of at the hands of Muslims. Perhaps, Mr. Bennett, perhaps, Mr. Mahr, you didn't realize that. I say Pol Pot. Pol Pot because he was the leader of the Khmer regime that took 2 million lives. That's 20% of the Cambodian population at that time. Pol Pot was an atheist. So was Hitler. So was Stalin. Do we say that atheism caused this? No. It wasn't atheism. Pol Pot, Hitler, and Stalin were political leaders, driven by things that influence politicians. Greed, control. Osama bin Laden was a political leader. Same with Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi, the leader of ISIS. Just like Pol Pot was influenced by control, greed, power, so are these guys. And they'll use whatever is necessary to achieve it, even if that happens to be a religion. I say Christopher Columbus, because Christopher Columbus was the guy who discovered North America in 1492, without which the United States wouldn't exist today. All those years ago, Christopher Columbus had a navigator who was Muslim. Because once Muslims left Mecca to Spain, they still needed to figure out which direction to pray to. So they invested into learning about mapping, into learning about astronomy, into learning about tools such as the telescope. So when you say that Islam is a cancer that needs to be cut out of America, perhaps America wouldn't have existed without the contributions of Muslims. Martin Luther King said that darkness cannot be driven out with anything except for light. The only power that can drive out hate is love. Mr. Bennett, Mr. Mahr,